The last train. In a small forgotten town, the old railway station stood silent, long abandoned since the last train had rolled through decades ago. Legends whispered of a ghostly locomotive that would appear on the stroke of midnight, carrying the souls of the lost. One stormy night, a young woman named Clara found herself stranded at the station after her car broke down. Seeking shelter from the rain, she entered the dilapidated building, its walls adorned with peeling paint and cobwebs. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. She noticed an old timetable on the wall, the last entry dated years earlier. As the clock approached midnight, Clara's curiosity piqued. She had heard the stories but never believed them. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and the faint sound of a whistle pierced the night. Heart racing, she stepped outside just as a ghostly train emerged from the mist, its lights flickering ominously. The train slowed to a halt, the doors creaking open as if inviting her aboard. Despite her better judgment, Clara felt an inexplicable pull. She stepped inside, the interior dimly lit and filled with shadows. The air was cold, and an eerie silence enveloped her. As she walked down the aisle, Clara noticed passengers seated in their seats, all dressed in clothing from a bygone era. Their faces were pale, and they stared ahead unblinking, as if trapped in their own worlds. Panic set in, but something compelled her to continue. She reached the front of the train where the conductor, a gaunt figure with hollow eyes, stood waiting. "Ticket?" he asked, his voice a raspy whisper. Clara fumbled in her pockets, but found nothing. "I don't have one," she stammered. The conductor's expression didn't change. "All must pay the fare." He pointed to the door behind her. "You may leave, but others cannot." Suddenly the train lurched forward, and Clara felt a jolt of fear. She turned to run, but the aisle seemed to stretch endlessly, passengers shifting to block her path. Desperation clawed at her throat as she fought to escape. "Help!" she screamed, but her voice echoed into nothingness. The train rattled as it picked up speed, and she realized she was bound for a destination she could not escape. Faces of the trapped passengers began to turn toward her, their mouths moving in silent screams. She felt their pain, their longing for freedom. In a final act of defiance, Clara sprinted to the rear of the train, throwing herself at the door. It swung open, and she leaped into the darkness, landing on the wet ground beside the tracks. The train vanished behind her, swallowed by the mist. Gasping for breath, Clara scrambled to her feet and ran back to the station, vowing never to return. But as she reached the entrance, she saw her own reflection in the glass, pale and vacant, like the souls she had just witnessed. Days later, a young girl passing the old railway station noticed a figure inside. It was Clara, standing by the timetable, staring blankly at the last entry. The girl felt a chill as she saw her lips move, whispering a single word: "Help." And as the clock struck midnight once more, the old train began to rumble in the distance, waiting for its next passenger.